There are huge issues facing the once thriving market town of Clonmel, with huge levels of vacancy and dereliction. There are water outages on a weekly and sometimes daily basis, and there are very concerning levels of open drug taking and drug dealing on the main streets of our town. There is unfortunately a very unsavoury atmosphere that is felt in the town centre. I don't say this lightly, because Clonmel is a great town, the Vale of Honey, Clonmel. Clonmel is a fantastic town with serious help and support. It can recover, but it cannot recover through the neglect that it is currently receiving. Clonmel has a very strong community. It has a great business ethic, and business are doing their best, small business especially, to carry on in very difficult economic circumstances. It is a wonderful university hospital, third level institution, and great industries in Clonmel. But the town centre is struggling, and the people are struggling. And we have fabulous community initiatives, clubs and organisations, namely Bannock Clonmel, wonderful ambassadors. There has been a task force set up to tackle vacancy and dereliction, but we need a multi-agency action to tackle the many serious issues facing the town. Dereliction and vacancy are one element. Homelessness and mental health and difficulties. Drugs are unfortunately rampant in the town, and the Gardaí are unable to deal with the situation due to a chronic shortage of Garda numbers, chronic I say, and working out of a horrible Garda station which were waiting 50 years to be replaced. The demise of the town has worsened with the abolition of Clonmel Borough Council 10 years ago by Phil Hogan at the time. Before the abolition, Clonmel Borough Council had a discretionary current account spend of 20 million per year. The loss of that is 200 million in the last 10 years. And can anyone wonder why it's so badly neglected? We now have a budget of 142,000 discretionary annually in the town of Clonmel. This is shocking. At the same time, parking charges in Clonmel town are the highest in the country, and businesses struggle with the huge rates and rising costs of doing business. There are huge concerns about the general sense of wasting money in the town. And now we woke up this Monday to a car park, the Friary car park. We lost our friars after hundreds of years earlier in the year, and the car park is now to be turned into an area for concerts and for arts. That would be needed. That was consultation about that during COVID when outdoor spaces were needed. But now we have a plaza which up to 10 million was spent on, and the site of the old Kicken Barracks. So we don't need this new venue in the town, taking away badly needed parking spaces, 30 right beside the main street and Mitchell Street. And furthermore, we've lost 14 spaces with the demolition of Clonmel Arms, which had to be demolished because it was in disrepair. 14 spaces have gone there from the centre of town. So the businesses in the town are aghast at how money can be spent on vanity projects and projects like this that are not necessary. And they can't be allowed. We're literally closing them down by stealth, by not allowing them to have people come into park, and they're getting no supports and token rates supports and that, but they just want to be left trade, allow the people to come in and do business with them.
All right.
Thank you, Deputy, for raising the issue. And I know that you and many public representatives are strong advocates of Clonmel. Indeed, Councillor Siobhan Ambrose is very regularly on to me in relation to the well-being of Clonmel. It's a town, it's a lovely town, and I like Clonmel, and has huge potential and has grown and expanded significantly over the last 2 decades, and there has been significant investment in the town as well. And I appreciate you acknowledging the investment in the University Hospital. As far back as my time as Minister for Health, we invested very significantly in Clonmel University Hospital. And I think there's a challenge, and we need to reflect. I mean, economically the country has expanded, population has grown, but I think the nature of urban life is changing. In other words, I think the mix that went into towns in previous times may not be the mix for current times. I think there may be need for more substantial residential now in town centres than has been the norm or the history. And this applies to the cities as well as to towns. I agree with you. I oppose the abolition of town councils and borough councils. From a democracy point of view, was my big kind of position at the time. But also I think from the idea of the community coming together, and to me an urban council was the community coming together in an elected format whose antennae were very sharp in terms of the needs of the town, and who came forward with cohesive plans. In my own county, I think of towns like Kinsale and Clonakilty, with good urban councils that transformed their experience. And that's true across the country. So I accept your perspective on that. And there are great organisations and clubs in Clonmel. So there's a lot to go for Clonmel as well. There's lots of strengths. Recently Minister Butler opened Haven House, which crisis resolution supports for mental health. That was a cost of 4 million, that facility. And a new 50-bed community nursing unit is being built at a cost of 13 million and will be completed this year. And then there's a whole range of urban renewal and then the rural community development funds that are putting funds into towns across the length and breadth of the country, including Clonmel. On drug dealing and addiction generally, I think we have a challenge in the country, not just in Clonmel, and I think it's an area we need renewed focus on, and we need a multidisciplinary response to that issue. And I've read reports this morning, for example, with worrying new synthetic drugs coming onto the market, which could be very serious for the country. And I do think, if you see the fentanyl crisis in the United States and in Canada, quite shocking, we do need to be very focused on the potential, bad enough as it is, but the potential more or worsening situation that could emerge in the current time.
Deputy McGrath.
Things happening in Clonmel and those issues, and we had great ambassadors like the late Frank Patterson, the late Meet Dell, and indeed we've Bennett Clonmel are known all over the world. But Clonmel has lost its borough council under Fine Gael. It's lost its Kickham Barracks, which is a major blow. It's lost our mental health services in St. Michael's. And what we want, then the biggest loss of all was the takeover of the power base from Clonmel to Nina. Nina is boasting with investments. I don't begrudge the people of Nina, but we lost completely in amalgamation, and the county manager was even appointed before the legislation was passed here, and that's dubious in itself. So the power base has shifted all the investment in Nina, and now we have the lowest charges in Nina, parking charges, and the money collected in Clonmel ironically goes into North Tipperary. So the people of Clonmel have had enough, and they want a fair play. And we'd find public officials, many of them retired at the time because of the takeover, and it was a takeover. And Councillor Niall Denny at the time, I helped him to go and took a High Court challenge to that abolition, but he had no support from any political parties or others, and he's still fighting the battle over the discrepancies that are there over how that happened, how the power shifted, and how the county manager was appointed. The North Tipperary county manager was appointed before ever the legislation was passed here. There are serious questions there. I've asked the Housing Committee to examine it, but we need a fair play. It's fine play to me, and Clonmel needs fair play, and we're not getting it.
It's pertaining to the appointment of any county manager. I don't think it's appropriate that we could cast aspersions on that, and that was quite some time ago, I'd say now. So, I didn't pick up the vanity project that you referenced earlier. I think, is it the transformation of a car park into a venue, is it? Or, yeah. No, I don't know what.
It's not needed.
I don't know what the broader view in Clonmel is on that, so I'm not going to comment specifically on that. On the Borough Council, and I don't want to be mischievous or anything like that at this point in time, and Clonquola is looking at me pretty sharply, but I think it was the Labour Party policy at the time.
They've apologised for it.
That came forward with the idea.
They've apologised for it.
And they have changed.
Why don't you bring it back?
Later, I think it was Deputy Howland at the time when he was Minister.
He apologised
possessed with the idea of urban councils.
Why don't you bring him back?
It's very hard to bring something back that's been abolished, but we shouldn't rule it out. We should not rule it out. And like, as you know, there was a compromise eventually in the form of the municipal sort of groups that have been established, and they have begun to, I think, assert themselves in respect of a district. But it's not the same thing. It's not the same thing in terms of a town. And I also believe in democracy, so I believe in where people should have the right to elect people to manage and plan the future of their town in a visionary way.
That concludes